Hi, everyone. Another week's gone by, and this is Moshe Rothschild coming to you live from Israel. Um, Anyhow, I hope you guys all had a great week and still on fire. So, just want to share with you some words. Hopefully, you'll find some inspiration in them, and I appreciate all those who sent some feedback, even just a word or two, just to know that you got it. Makes me it's a good feeling to know that someone's watching it. But the truth is, even if I make these just for myself, it's worth it. So tonight, actually, Friday night, is the ninth of the Hebrew month of Av. Normally, it's a fast day, but we don't fast on the Shabbat, so it's pushed off to Sunday. Sunday will be a fast day. Um, it actually will start as Shabbat ends, and it will end on Sunday evening. It's a 24, 25-hour fast. And we fast to commemorate the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem itself was destroyed, and we were sent into exile twice. The first temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, and the second one by the Romans. Um, and the temple, the second one that we are currently in that exile, it's nearly been 2,000 years. The Talmud tells us was destroyed because of something called sinat chinam, or baseless hatred. And the way to reverse that is through baseless love, through random acts of kindness and love. Now, this week when I was guiding, I was walking down the steps, going down to the Western Wall, going down to the Kotel, and there were a few of the students from the yeshiva there, from Esha Torah, and they were giving out, they had with them hundreds of bottles of water. And on the bottles of water, there was a label that said, this week we're going to be marking Tisha B'Av, the fast of the ninth of Av, the day that the temple was destroyed because of baseless hatred. We want to do something to bring love between people. And they were just giving out left and right free bottles of water to anyone who wanted. It was very impressive. But one thing I've learned from guiding is that if you ask a lot of Jews, what's the holiest spot in the world? And they unfortunately tell you the Kotel, the Western Wall. And it is not true at all. The Kotel is not the holiest spot for Jews. The holiest spot is the Temple Mount. And where the temple was, where the Dome of the Rock is where the Holy of Holies, where the temple stood, that golden dome on the Temple Mount. Now, you might ask yourself, why was the temple, the Beit HaMikdash, why was it so important? And that's a very fair, reasonable question. So you need to understand what the temple was. The temple, if you think about it, it's like a window. There might be sun outside, but if you don't have a window to see the sun, right, then you can't really appreciate the sun. So if you have a very small window, you can appreciate it to some extent, and the bigger the window, the more you can appreciate it. So God gave us a gift. We as human beings, we're finite. It's very hard, not very hard, it's impossible for us to comprehend the infinite. How do we have a relationship with God who's infinite? It's impossible. So God gave us a gift. He gave us something called the Beit HaMikdash, or the temple. The temple was a place, it's like God's spiritual window. It's a place where divinity, where godliness, spirituality was so close that God allowed us a glimpse into infinity. Even though we were finite, we had a glimpse to the infinite. It was a place of rendezvous, of heaven and earth, where heaven touched earth. The physical touched the spiritual. It was a place that a person could come to pour out their heart, to feel closeness to Hashem. It's not that Hashem isn't everywhere. Of course, God is everywhere. The difference is that we are limited in our ability to perceive God because we're finite. What the temple was, it was a gift that allowed us to transcend our finitude, if that's a word, and become infinite, even for just a moment, to experience God in the deepest way. Um, when the temple was destroyed, we lost this. We went into exile, and it was much more difficult to find Hashem, more difficult to find God. And unfortunately, on the in the throughout the 2,000 years of exile, we've lost a lot of Jews. Either physically they were killed, but we did lose a lot of Jews to assimilation, who gave up on God, so to speak, who gave up on the Torah because it was so hard to feel it, so hard to find it. because we didn't have a Beit HaMikdash that allowed us that deep access to and closeness to Hashem. So that is one of the tragedies of the exile, is that it's much more difficult to find God. And I want to tell you a beautiful, sad but beautiful story. And there is a great Hasidic rabbi. I don't remember his name right now, but he was playing a game of hide and seek with his kid, with his grandchildren. And they played, and how sometimes games can go on for a while. They're playing, and all the kids are hiding. He's looking for them, and so on and so forth. And finally, the game ended, and they're all sitting around. And as they're sitting around, they suddenly heard crying coming from upstairs. So the Rebbe gets up and he goes upstairs, and he hears the crying coming from a particular room. He goes into that room, and in that room, he hears the crying coming from a closet. So he opens the closet, and what does he see? He sees his youngest grandchild. And the grandchild says to him, Saba, Tati, grandfather. He says to him, I went to hide, but nobody came to look for me. And so the Rebbe said, wow, what a deep lesson, is that God went into hiding after the temple was destroyed. The thing is, though, not so many people are looking for him. That's our job, and it's very, very difficult once we're in the galut, in the exile, is to find Hashem. It's very, very hard. Now, when you come to Israel, we don't have a Beit HaMikdash, but still, there's greater holiness here because you're close to that very spot. And you can feel it, and you all felt it, and you can feel it in your soul. But when you go into the exile, even further, when you go to New York and Chicago and California, or wherever you are, Kentucky even, it's sometimes very hard to feel God. Now, but our job is to look for him because God, so to speak, went into hiding. In Hebrew, it's called Hester Panim. But our job is to find him. And every single thing we do to try to find God, to bring godliness into this world, by treating people kindly, by bringing Shabbat into our lives, by bringing spirituality into our lives, we are searching and hunting for God. We are bringing godliness and hence goodliness into this world. So I want to bless you all that this Tisha B'Av, this 9th of Av, that we're going to mourn the destruction of the temple, that we feel the loss, that we appreciate that without the ability to access God so easily, the world can be a very lost place. And so our job is to search and to hunt, and may this be the last Tisha B'Av that we have to ever mark, that we should once again experience God's revelation in its fullness in Jerusalem. So I want to bless you all that this should be the greatest Shabbat of your life, at least until next week.